The Trump administration's efforts to shrink the federal government includes cutting 2,700 jobs from the Small Business Administration. That's about 43% of the SBA's workforce. Bruce de Torres with the American Small Business League believes the White House is setting up the SBA to fail. Bruce, thank you for joining us. So why would political interests want to dismantle the SBA?
To bury and diminish the contracting program. The contracting program facilitates the legal requirement that 23% of all federal contracts must go to small businesses. And it is mired in problems, the worst of which is that for years, decades, the SBA has falsified compliance with that goal. And in reality, legitimate small businesses only get around 3 or 4% of federal contracts. And big businesses are called small businesses for the purpose of fulfilling that requirement. It's an egregious and horrible example of corporate capture of the largest economic stimulus plan in our history, which is this provision from the 1953 Small Business Act that 23% of all federal contracts are supposed to go to small businesses, legitimate small businesses, 500 employees or less, but they're going to 0.1% of American companies that are big businesses.
So essentially to stifle competition. Well, the SBA said this workforce cut is to refocus resources. Why are you convinced this reduction is a first step to shutting it down?
Because the SBA recently has been demonized as mismanaging about $600 million in its own loans. So the staff's being cut by 43%. The budget's going to be slashed by about a half to about $500 million. But now it's being given the $1.6 trillion student loan portfolio. It can't manage $600 million, but it's going to successfully manage $1.6 trillion in loans. We can already hear in our imagination a few days or a few weeks from now, oh, sorry, it was a mistake to give the SBA the student loans. We're going to push all of its functions into, the Treasury Department or the Commerce Department, and all of its functions will get lost in the fog of bureaucracy and never mentioned, and most expensively, the contracting program is not going to get mentioned. And that last 3% of federal budgets, we fear, are going to be captured by the 0.1% of companies in America that are big businesses with more than 500 employees. Turned around, most important, 99.9% of all businesses in America are small businesses with less than 500 employees. They should be getting at least 23% of the federal budget. They're getting 3%. We fear they're about to get nothing.
If the goal is to eventually close the Small Business Administration like the Trump administration is doing in the Department of Education, is that a bad thing?
Yes, it's horrible because, first of all, it's illegal. It's a failure of a president to execute a law, which is the 1953 Small Business Act. But worse than that, it represents hundreds of billions of dollars a year that could be poured into our small businesses, create millions of jobs every single year, boom the economy, the stock market would rise. It typically follows the monthly jobs report. Nicely, the world markets would rise because they follow our stock market. So it's the loss of an economic prosperity that is ours for the having if we would only have a president and a Congress to enforce these things, honor the provisions that the SBA is supposed to steer legally, authentically to legitimate small businesses, 23% of all federal contracts.
Bruce de Torres with the American Small Business League. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.